seems to have done in his paintings of the Spanish monarchy. Many people read those paintings of the Bourbons, as satirical, secretly satirical.
In your book, you have a chapter called Religion Kills, and you've traveled the whole world observing and documenting the violence and the divisiveness. And you say religion poisons everything, as well as a menace to civilization. It has become a threat to human survival.
Yes, well, I think we're very nearly to the point with Iran, and we're not perhaps as far as we'd like to be from the point with Al-Qaeda or kindred organizations, where the thing we've long feared will happen, and that a messianic regime or group will get hold of an apocalyptic weapon. I mean, that's already happened in the case of Israel and Pakistan, though the Israeli regime is not exactly messianic, and it is under some kind of American and international control. It isn't nice to know that there are people who with that kidney who have nuclear weapons, but with Pakistan, I think it's exceedingly dangerous. And with Iran would be intolerably so.
Well, and some people would argue that a messianic government has control of nuclear arms here in the United States.
Yes, I'm familiar with that argument, but I've never met anyone who really thinks that it's true.
Well, there's an awful lot of proselytizing going on at the Pentagon, but...
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to tell you, just in the time available that we've got, that I do not believe that we live under a theocracy in this country.
No,
I'm very much opposed to. I mean, I've done more to oppose and ridicule the Christian right than most people have, and I think I've made them squeal a few times. But I actually think that they are a very overrated group as well as a completely wicked and ridiculous one.
Well, I hope so.
Well, it's because of the eternal vigilance that we don't live under a theocracy.
Well, of course, needless to add, or no, not needless to add, you add quite correctly that one has to keep up the fire on these people. But, you know, I don't think the United States is a theocracy or wants to bring on the end of the world in a thermonuclear cataclysm. And I can't say that I know that or believe it of the Islamists.
You have a chapter on religion and health. Religion can be hazardous to your health. You talk about the violent, irrational, intolerant, horrible things, contemptuous of women and coercive toward children. And you say organized religion ought to have a great deal on its conscience.
Yes, it should. But, well, if you think, for example, of the campaigns against vaccination by religion, some of those still go on. Against blood transfusions by religion, some of those still go on. Against scientific and medical innovation in general.
Stem cell research.
So, yes, as being an interference with God's design. If you think that's just on the medical front, and then I don't have to draw you a picture about what we know, about what the clergy have done to the children in their care for centuries, and how that is a sin. I use the word deliberately, that no decent unbeliever would consider committing or would be able to forgive themselves for thinking about. And it's the religious practice and theory of putting people in the care of elderly repressed virgins with a text that says that everything sexual is filthy can possibly be anything but a fatally horrible idea.
Well, it's a put-down to humanity, human nature. We're all worms. We're all sinners. We're all damned. We can't think any good thoughts on our own. We have to submit to a dictator.
That's right, but cheer up, because the universe is designed with you in mind. So from being completely down on your face in the dust and groveling and being a masochist, you can get up and say, well, God has a big plan just for me. I mean, could one imagine anything that was worse for people's personalities than that?
Well, the arrogance of it, of course.
The arrogance combined with the false humility.
Well, I remember when I stopped
being a product of sin.
I felt that when I stopped being a minister, that suddenly I got more humble. I used to know everything, and suddenly I had to kind of sit down and go, whoa, I don't really know what I'm talking about here.
I had no idea you were a former minister. Well, good for you. You're in recovery.
I saw the light.
Excellent. Well done.
So in your chapter on religion as an original sin, you say there are indeed several ways in which religion is not just amoral, but positively immoral.
Yes.
A false picture of reality to the world, the doctrine of blood sacrifice, and what a lot of people comment on is the imposition of impossible tasks and rules.
Yes, I think a great feature, this is true, by the way, of secular forms of totalitarianism as well, is that they promulgate laws that it's impossible to obey. and they're capricious. You never know whether you're following the law or not, and therefore you can always be arrested and always convicted. This is a very, very wicked way of treating people, and it does come from the religious idea that you can be sinning without knowing it, and you can be committing thought crime while you're asleep.
And isn't that awful? Now, what kind of reception have you been getting when you go around the country?
Well, to me, not completely surprisingly, very positive. I mean, I have to say that Christianity Today, which is quite a fundamentalist group in some ways, invited me to debate with one of its champions on their own website, and they want to publish the results as a book. I almost everywhere I could find someone, some rabbi or priest, to come out and debate. And in fact, I've had more invitations from them to do so than I can manage. And generally, the audiences have been very receptive and humorous and polite. So that's all been really pretty good. And then I think there are a lot of people who aren't in that community, obviously, who are fed up with being told in the media all the time that they belong to a country full of devout people, and have very kindly gone out and bought my book, partly to prove that that's not true.
But there have been some, of course, wonderful reviews, but there's been sort of snotty reviews, too. You know, they're lumping all of you best-selling atheist authors as shrill, that kind of stereotype.
I don't care about any of that.
Well,
I have a very thick skin and a broad back. And after all, I am being quite rude to what some people consider to be very dear, cherished, and sacred beliefs. So I can't very well complain if people complain.
You're speaking plainly on your disbelief, your dissent from religion. Is that being rude?
Well, I think if this is going to be allowed, that if people say, I mean, I once had someone actually take a swing at me at a dinner party in Washington because I said I thought that most of the Jesus story was legendary or mythical. Well, because he said he just couldn't believe. I said, well, you really must grow up about things like this. But I have to say that I think it's offensive, if we're going to be allowed to say things like offensive. Well, to say that, the genitals of children should be mutilated in conformity with Bronze Age texts. I mean, I find that a little bit more than offensive, actually.
We're out of time here.
Well, thank you so much, Christopher Hitchens, for joining us. We're looking forward to meeting you next week at the 30th Annual Freedom from Religion Foundation Convention in Madison.
Look forward likewise.
Thank you.
Ciao.